Why we can't see your picture?
Okay, recording.
Now you can call the meeting to order.
Okay, calling the meeting to order. First up is the update agenda. Anything? Hi, Joel. Um, Nothing for update agenda, right?
The only thing that I want to update on the agenda is what the planning board gets paid for the,
Oh, yes.
I'm seeking an increase, and we
And,
can discuss that.
okay. Does everybody agree that we want to increase in our pay?
Nice.
That's a good answer. Me, what do you think?
I think we've been at this rate for
Too many
how many years?
So you're in favor?
Yep.
Ozone, what about you? That a yes? But he was going like this.
I don't think he's,
Well, if we raise ours, won't select board have to raise theirs?
No, they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
They make a lot more money than we do.
no, I just think it's time, the beginning of this year, it's 2026. I think it's time that the planning board gets more than $300 for attending 2 meetings a month.
We're the lowest paid board.
We're the lowest paid board of all the boards, and I think it's time that we ask for an increase. So that's something that I want to bring up at the meeting tonight. And while the new year is starting, 2026, and it's something that we can talk about now or on the agenda or down the road.
Well, we kind of want to do it now.
Now,
since
I guess now we're going to
now
talk
because
about
they're
it.
going to do it. No, because they're
You can
doing the
do it. You
budget.
can do it towards the end of the meeting if you wanted, Andy. Let Allison do her
Yeah,
stuff.
Okay.
let's do that.
She don't
Yeah,
care
at
about
the
your
end of the-
pay.
Okay, definitely. Okay, perfect. I don't think anybody's here for public comment. Nobody there. And now the town plan, Allison.
Okay. First thing, before the holidays, I sent out a written up summary of the survey, and I wanted any comments or questions. I did get a request from Joel to do an age breakout on recreation usage and people who come to the downtown. And I can do that. I just wanted to know if there were any other questions or other, cross tabulation needs that you would all have.
No, I think what you sent us at the last email that you sent which was the breakdown, that was really informative. But this added stuff that you're asking about, I think that would be helpful also.
Okay, so I'll break it down by age group according to how people answered the questions. And the breakout will be, how often they come to downtown, what they come for, and what their recreation usages are.
Yeah. Other than that, I think you've done a terrific job.
Great,
I
thanks.
mean, it's really very informative what you've done, and but this added stuff that you're asking about, I think that'll put the whipped cream on the pie.
Okay. So we'll do the crosstab for the next meeting, and then if you all like the results, then I guess you all can post it on your website and disseminate it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So the other thing I wanted to do today, and I think I need to be able to share something. Do I have permission to share?
Yep,
I
it's letting you.
do. Yay.
So I was wondering that because I didn't let me add you as a co-host, so I was wondering.
Yeah. So how?
Oh, yeah. No,
There we go. Do you see this?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. So rather than just write up an update of the housing element, I wanted to integrate the findings from the survey and also share with you some of the key points, and I'm suggesting a few additional strategies based on the visit that we did, the walk around in late October, as well as the community survey. And so then I'll send you this PowerPoint, but if there are no objections or if there are additions, we'll use this as a basis and then use that to update the narrative. Okay? So this is what your housing situation, this is based on the 2020 census. You have a similar data table in your existing plan. I just updated it using the 2020 census wherever 2020 census information was available. You know, more than half of your housing units are in Island Pond, which is not a surprise. You also have a higher rate of seasonal vacancy in outlying well, it's pretty much through Island Pond, but and Brighton, but the bulk of your vacant units are actually reserved for seasonal use.
Okay, you take the housing units 519 and 943. What years are those?
2020.
Those are counted in the
What's the
2020
difference?
census.
Island Pond or Brighton?
Right.
Okay.
Pond is,
And the 943 is also the 2020 census?
Yep, they're both from the 2020 census. You know, you've mostly you know, you've got kind of a vibrant mix of owner occupied and renter occupied. You know, one of the things I didn't do, but I probably could do, is units and structure. You do have a heavy
So,
emphasis on single family units, and so I could add that information to the plan as well.
so where it says Island Pond 519, that's just the downtown.
It's probably a slightly different area. It's called a census designated place, and the boundaries follow established centers of development. So
Okay.
if for the most part, it probably does align.
And the 943 would include all the outlying areas.
It would include everything.
Okay, okay. I just
So,
wanted to see
I
why,
guess I should have made that clear.
yeah, it's just a little
Housing units
confusing.
in Island Pond are a subset of the units in Brighton in general. You have 943 units in the entire town, but more than half of them are concentrated in Island Pond.
Okay,
Good question.
well, it was just a little confusing.
No, and I will make a point of, as a matter of fact, I'm going to make a note here, right here on the, this will be a subset. That way I'll remember to clarify it in the draft.
Okay, thank you.
You made a reference to affordable, definitions of affordable in your plan, and I just wanted to make sure that you know that the definition of affordable, the statutory definition of affordable has changed since your plan was adopted. For owner-occupied housing, your total cost of home ownership doesn't exceed 30% of the gross annual income of a household that is earning up to 120% of the county median. And it expanded that definition because workforce housing often was falling outside of the owner-occupied definition at 80%. So like teachers and firefighters or healthcare providers might be making at, you know, the county median or just above, but they were still struggling to find affordable housing. So that was the reason for the statutory change.
Okay, can I ask another question?
Yep.
I hate to be a pain.
No, that's why we're here.
This medium that you're bringing up, can you break that down into dollars amounts instead of this percentage? Because that would tell people better information as to what's going on.
we could provide an example in the plan. But we want to make sure that, it changes every year.
Well,
And
I
this is an
understand
8-year
that.
plan. So we could provide an example.
Yeah,
With
would you
the
put
caveat that
I
is
think it would,
at this time.
I think it would be more clearer for people to read that.
Okay,
So in other words, based on I don't know what the medium is right now for this area for a basic income, which might be $40,000 or $50,000 versus $120,000. I just want to see where this comes into play.
yep. As long as we provide a caveat that is, this is, it gets updated.
Does that make sense to you, Gene?
No, yeah, but yeah, like you said, but it's gonna, like she said, that's for 8 years.
Yeah.
So
It changes.
you should probably put down for 2026 or whatever. Because
Yeah.
that'll change, subject to change.
Right.
How's that?
Yeah.
But it does make it clearer. It gives
Yeah.
them context.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and this percentage doesn't mean anything to the average person.
Okay. So, looking at some of the affordability stats, and these are actually
There we go.
derived from American Community Survey, the 5-year averages. But they're all populated onto the housingdata.org website. And so your median household income for Brighton is 55,000. Or statewide, it's 78,000. I should probably include the county in here as well, and I can do that.
Yeah, because the
this could
county
be
is
a
going to be a
data
lot
table.
different than that.
It's going to be I'm thinking it's going to be in between statewide, and it's going to still be slightly higher than Brighton.
Yeah, because 10 years ago, the average median income was 25,000, so that's changed a lot.
Yeah. However, if you're looking at the difference on like gross rents and monthly gross rents, and there's less of a difference here between statewide and townwide. So there's still a struggle if you're renting and
Well, I can see the struggle.
yeah. However, there's a bigger difference if you're purchasing a home, but overall, your percentage of people who are considered extremely cost burdened, that would be people who spend more than half of their income on housing, is at about 14%. And that's pretty significant.
That's high.
Yeah. So
like
why
to-
don't we add county to this data table?
That's higher
is
than the
indicated.
average state average.
No, statewide is 14%
same.
too.
You know, you should note that there's a difference between median and average.
Yeah.
Median is half the people are above that number and half the people are below.
It's
can
the
be a
midpoint.
It can be
Yeah.
a different figure than average. Average is a different figure.
Yeah, and statistically, if your average is higher than the median, it usually means that there's some significant outlier. It's like somebody is making an obscene amount of money.
See
and
how a
skewing
play
it
of
upward.
words changes everything.
So if we included the county data here, that would also help to provide context for the definition of affordability.
Can I make?
Yeah.
There again,
It's why we're here.
there's a play of words here. When you say average, medium, and the difference between the two.
Yeah.
I mean, I would rather see a truer statistic number than a play of words. Do you know what I'm getting at?
Both of those terms have use as what they are. They're just a different thing.
Yeah.
But the average person doesn't look at it that way, Joel.
Well,
The average person wants to read this and they want to say, well, gee, I'm in that income bracket. So
Then
know,
we
but-
needed to find, I've seen sometimes somebody could take, maybe we could just add a statement saying, this is what median is, half the people are above and half the people are below.
Well, then you
I don't
should.
know why.
I think that should be explained.
Maybe it just doesn't make a difference. Maybe that just won't.
Well, we could include like a little call out box that explains the difference between median and average and the fact that they're not used interchangeably. We
I
could
think
also
that's a good idea.
include in the table the average household income. I mean, I don't have median rents in home prices, but what we could include the average household incomes. I think I could track that down, and that would be interesting to see if there's a significant variation from the
Yeah,
median,
I
because
agree.
basically
I
that
agree.
means that there are outliers.
Right.
I would like to be the population to be more informed of what actually
Yep.
is what's going on.
I think both those measures are good to have included. But they
Yeah.
both tell you different things.
That's correct.
Yeah. So we're to this data table, we're going to add county, we're going to add average household income, and we're going to explain what the difference is. And we will also, in a little call out box, if there's a significant deviation between median and average, generally speaking, average trends higher, and that's because there are some, like a small number of people who make significantly more. So,
Thank you.
according to the survey, people were overall, they were voicing in their open-ended comments, they were talking about the increasing cost of living. They were worried about property taxes. Sometimes people specifically called out like the education tax. But it looked like most of the survey respondents kind of blended them all together and just there were a couple of people who called out, like water and sewer. There was, I think, like one person. Um, one person who called out water and sewer. There were a couple of people who wrote about the cost of water and sewer in open-ended comments, but they didn't choose it as a major as the biggest cost driver. The way we asked this question is we asked people to identify the single biggest cost driver. So that's why it skews the way it does. Any questions?
I can't see it from here. Read it. What's the red one? What was that?
For taxes.
Taxes
Taxes.
is
Taxes was the
64% said
number one?
taxes.
Okay.
And some people, like there was like a handful of people who said that it was, like the education tax, but then most people didn't make that distinction. So I lumped them together into a single category that just said taxes.
And over the
like-
next 2 years, this may even change with the consolidation and everything else that's going on with the Act 73 or whatever that it is. I mean, things could change on this graph significantly.
Well, that's what happens because it's only every 8 years.
That's
So,
right.
I mean, you look at the one 8 years ago.
And what's coming here could change this whole graph.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, probably the reason why so many people were complaining about the taxes is because we just went through reappraisal.
Yeah.
Right.
Notices,
Yeah.
and so many people got notices that their valuation, then the tax bill went up. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was you saw that it was significant, it was the first thing on their minds when they were responding to this survey.
Yeah.
Looking at
Because it was
2%
just-
increases and then in education again. What's that going to do to that graph?
It was interesting to note that even though they didn't like heating and energy costs and maintenance and repairs were accounted for a smaller share, if you go on to the next data point, you've got like 38%, more than a third of your homes are built 1939 or earlier. That's according to the ACS estimates. And 37% of your survey respondents either we're definitely going to make repairs, we're planning to make repairs, major repairs or renovations in the next 3 years. So that's a lot of people. I think
Yes.
53 respondents. And to me, it feels like it might be reflecting the age of the housing stock.
Yep.
Some indicators about household size versus the housing unit size. If you look at the tenure by housing size, and this is according to the 2020 census, nearly town-wide, nearly 70% of your owner-occupied houses have 2 or fewer people. And renter-occupied town-wide, and this is, pretty consistent between town-wide and Island Pond, 80% have 2 or fewer people. So that's a pretty small housing unit or household size. And you do have a large number of older buildings and larger buildings that, were built to accommodate larger families in a different era. So
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. I mean, this housing unit size, how do you base that compared to square footage of a home? I mean,
I think what we would have to do is try to look at it from maybe the Lister data, because you certainly can't get the square footage.
unless you go to that.
Square footage estimates from the census are not very reliable. However, every time I look at information about household size and housing units, we do have a pretty consistent mismatch. We have shrinking household units because our demographic is aging, fewer people with children. Yet the housing stock that is available to them is generally bigger.
Yeah. 'Cause I just read an article where the average housing unit was 1,500 square feet. It's now dropping down to 1,000 square feet, which is a significant difference.
Where
Yeah.
was this that you read it?
Oh, it was on a site for the state of Vermont. I wish I could tell you which one it was. I read it on YouTube. It was a
Okay.
YouTube site.
Well, if there's a way that I can access the Lister data, I don't know how easy that is to do, but if we had, I think, like an average square footage for R1s and R2s, that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Well, it's public information. How we'd actually get it to you, I'm not sure.
It
I
seems,
know that the statewide
wrong
grand
person.
list doesn't have square footage. It
I think
has
we have it.
acres.
I think we have it for most properties. I can't guarantee we have it for all, but we're supposed to.
I
Yeah.
think we would. I'm not sure how to get it out of the system, but I bet we could figure it out.
I'll
Okay.
bet
Well,
we could too.
aren't taxes based on square footage?
No,
No, it's based on acreage and
Based-
value of the
taxes are
structure.
based on the
Acreage.
value of the property.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, me too.
That's a surprise to me, acreage.
No,
Well,
it's the value.
No, the land and the
It's
house.
the value of the property is what taxes are based on.
But on
Right.
the grand list, what you see is also the number of acres associated with the property.
More acres, the more value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally, I mean, and it depends if it's like an R1 or an R2.
Yeah, I learned something.
We can, if I can try to delve deeper into the grand list, and if there's a way that we can get additional information, we'll have at it. You talk about density in your existing plan. You talk about allowing densities in some zoning districts, especially permitting accessory dwelling units. I think it's important to note that the laws around statute around accessory dwelling units has changed. And they are more permissive since your last plan was written. There are also additional changes that allow for infill. But I also thought it was important to point out that while your plan focuses on concentrating development in established centers of development, when we did that map of areas that had vacant land or undeveloped land or land that could possibly be developed, and this is not including houses that have just fallen into extreme disrepair. But we came up with a total of 1,300 acres. That doesn't mean that everybody wants to develop every one of those acres, but there's room for infill, is what that is. So just from that map and the accompanying and the tour that we did, the little drive around tour, there is only 1 acre, a parcel that's less than 1/8 of an acre. It is in an area that's served by water and sewer, and so you can no longer prohibit development of that. It would be awful hard to develop something like that, but you could put like a tiny house or an accessory unit dwelling on it. But then you have some 32 parcels that are between 1/8 or 1/2 an acre. And again, those might be areas that could accommodate like a freestanding ADU or a tiny house. And then you have 26 parcels that are up to 1 acre. And then you've got 110 parcels that have 1 acre or more of vacant land. And again, this doesn't mean that everybody will want to develop there, but there's room for development, is what we're saying. And we saw some of those examples in the drive around tour in late October. So the part that everybody has been waiting for, and this is like a soft release of our housing targets. I just want to provide a little bit of background here. Act 181 required local plans to address housing targets that are set by the Regional Planning Commission. We actually got those targets that were developed by the Department of Housing and Community Development, and they worked with the Vermont Housing Finance Authority to come up with those. And in statute, the units, the majority of the housing units and those targets really need to be focused on areas that are already developed, focused in centers, planned growth areas, village areas, more than half of them. They're really not talking about going to sensitive rural areas or rural general lands. So this is a new requirement. We're dealing with it too. I'm going to walk you through the next couple of slides just to show this matrix that we came up with, this rather complex way of trying to distribute these targets in an equitable fashion. But we're also going to be doing a webinar on this throughout the region. And, I'm sure that there will be more questions. So this is just the beginning of a dialogue. I do have an important caveat that the reasons that these targets exist is to communicate the scope and scale of investment that needs to be made in order to alleviate the housing crisis. We know that there's a housing crisis. The targets help to provide a statistical based background context to them. What happens if you don't achieve them? The Regional Planning Commission doesn't step in and set up a provisional government. They need to be reflected in your plan to show why we need to be planning for more housing. They're not quotas. So I just want to
Yeah.
communicate that.
I have a problem with that.
Okay. They're not quotas. You have a problem with it
Well,
that they're not quotas?
I just, the more information that we give the government and the more stuff that we tell the government what's going on in our town, I have a problem where who is to say 10, 20 years down the road, the government's going to say, you have this much land available and we're taking it from you and you're going to build these houses. I mean, sometimes too much information is bad. And maybe I'm talking out of my rear end here, but I just think that, this is a possibility. I mean, things have happened before where the government or the state or the cities have come in and said, we're taking over your block of apartments and you're going to have fixed rental properties and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And I have a problem with this. And I just, maybe I'm looking too far in the future here, but this is what all this information is sometimes not good.
There's nothing in statute that
I realize that,
these
but
are
nothing
punitive.
says that these
So-
statutes won't come down the pike. And somebody says that we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and you're going to lose some of your land because you're going to put in low cost. We're going to put in low cost housing on your property, and don't tell me that this can't happen because it can. So I'm just a little leery about all this information that we're digging up here for somebody else to use down the pike, and maybe I shouldn't think this, but that's how I feel. I mean, sometimes a lot of information is bad information, and that I just have a problem with this. You have 180 acres that we can take over, and we're going to put low cost housing on your property, and you're going to lose your property. And don't tell me this can't happen because it happens everywhere else. So don't tell me that this can't happen. I have a problem with this.
Well, I think one of the major points that we heard from survey respondents is that Island Pond is not affordable. It's harder and harder for people to live here. There were lots of complaints about the cost of the water and sewer upgrades. We know that there's a housing crisis. I think what we're really trying to communicate here is that we could make the community more affordable if we removed some of the barriers to infill development. And so if you wait until the end to see what some of these recommendations are for making sure that if somebody wants to create new housing units on their property, that your zoning bylaws aren't getting in the way. I think that's not a top-down mandate. That's more of an organic response. And if you're able to add more users to your water and sewer, you also have a greater chance of stabilizing costs of utilities in the future. So
I understand what you're saying, but if I have 1,000 acres of prime land and the government comes in and says, we're gonna take 500 acres of that and we're gonna make low cost housing, and you have to give it up because we've passed this Act 1000, I'm just throwing out numbers here, and we're gonna do this. I mean, don't tell me this can't happen, because it can.
So
And this
nobody-
is
nobody-
and this
just
is
so
the
you
problem.
know,
This is the
the
problem that
13
I have,
okay,
because the
but wait a
more
minute.
information we give to AI and the more information we give the government and the state and the locals and everybody else, they all take all this information. They're going to say, well, gee, we can get housing for 500 or 800 more people here, because if we take this and this and this on the eminent domain, and don't tell me it can't happen, because it can.
Yeah, it does.
I'm just telling you what can come down the pike. And I
So
just want
nobody
to
is
be,
designating these 1,300 acres as prime developable land. But what we're saying is typically when somebody goes into a downtown, they think
know what
there's
I'm
no
getting
more
at,
room
Gene.
for development. And that's really not the case here.
no, I understand that.
You can add more.
But don't tell me that what my scenario is, that this can't happen, because it can.
And it's not to be, I didn't present this as an opportunity for eminent domain, which is a much more difficult path to follow.
So I'd just like to say, I mean, this is the planning commission.
I realize that.
Your job is to plan for the future of the town, and you have a housing element, and we know that there's a housing shortage. Are we forbidden from developing information that will help us resolve the problem? Because you're afraid
It
that
depends
there's
how the information is used. And that's what I'm getting at.
well, we need to have the information to use. Do you think that aren't we much more likely to use that information? I don't doubt that it can happen, Mark. I think the chances of your scenario happening are pretty slim.
Oh, don't say that,
Actually, an
Joel.
island pond.
In Island
Yeah, I don't
Pond.
think they're gonna put 500, the government's gonna come in and.
And in the next 50 years, things could change drastically here.
Well, I'll be gone then.
I'll be gone then, and I don't care. But I'm just saying, down the road, this can't, all this information that we're combining and compiling and giving everybody this information, because it doesn't cost them anything. We're doing all the footwork for them. We're doing all the work for them to have all this information, and then down the road,
But
they
they would
use
have
it
this,
against us.
Mark-
they had this information anyways. We're just putting
Right,
it in our,
Right.
know,
They can get it.
And the
We'll
other
have
thing
the
I can tell you,
information.
Mark, is a lot of our grant funding for all of our projects coming up is going to be tied to this kind of information.
I know.
And if
I
I
know.
have it to point at, it certainly makes it a whole lot easier to be able to get those grants that you want to pay the bills.
So the last thing I would add about
But-
density
But there is a cost of all this information, and that's what I'm getting at.
well, I don't know that we can go back to that.
Everything.
Let's keep going.
Let's
Okay.
keep going. We'll
So-
drop it now. Let's keep going.
Mm.
So region-wide, for 2030, we've got, on the low end, we've got 2826, on the high end, 4193. For 2050, you see a much bigger scale, anywhere between 9,014 units and up to 17,768 units. The difference is that when you do, supposed projections of need, what has come before isn't necessarily what's coming ahead. And you've got two different eras of growth in demand. You've got your pre-pandemic growth rates, which were significantly slower. So those are what are setting the low end numbers versus the high end. For Brighton, you've got for 2050, anywhere between 233 to 460 housing units. Those are not necessarily what has been touted as the predominant form of housing, which are, freestanding single family homes. Those are just units.
That would be like 8 units a year between 2030 and 2050.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're lucky if we get two.
So, we couldn't just base this on a share of the population because not every community is set up the same way to handle density. So we looked at it at a couple of different ways. First of all, we looked at it overall capacity, and we had different rankings for capacity, and I'll take you through those in the next slide. But that accounted for 50% of the score. Then we looked at if you had any eligibility for tier 1A or B, which you currently don't. So you didn't receive any additional weighting there. And also we looked at lands like, lands that are basically zoned to receive higher density. And that would receive a 30% score. So starting with capacity, and this was a big determining factor, we had 4 different rankings. Starting from 0, which you have, basically, very little out there, like the UTGs or Victory or Brunswick, to most of our communities, or I'd say the biggest share of our communities, where they have no water, wastewater, some limited service. I have 19 communities that fall under that. Rank capacity rating of 2 is water. I don't think we have any communities that have just wastewater, but no water. And then 3, this is where you kind of fall into with Burke, Canaan, Danville, and Troy. You have water and wastewater, but you don't have like all of the other planning and infrastructure capacity that you would find in like Newport City or St. Johnsbury, Hardwick, Barton, or Derby. The high overall capacity communities, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 communities actually are ended up accounting for 50% of all of the targets. So you're kind of up there, but not quite. For land use, the areas that we had and any centers of development, like a designated downtown, or transition areas, which you have, the downtowns or village centers areas would account for like 50% of the weighting. Rural general lands, those are those rural lands that they're neither agricultural, forestry, or conservation lands. They only accounted for 20%. So the numbers feel like really intimidating, and yeah, I mean, it is a daunting number. I think that when we talk about housing, we need to remember that we're talking about a variety of housing types. We're talking about adaptive reuse and multi-units as well. We're talking about the accessory dwelling units, even tiny homes or cottage courts. It's important to note that Vermont is no longer exclusively single family zoning. It's illegal for you to ban duplexes or multi-units from your community. So you would look to the variety of housing types, and the greatest opportunity to accommodate a variety of housing types is to have a vibrant downtown. So some of the examples, and I'm just repeating some of these visuals from the examples that we looked at on the walking tour, but such as like addition to existing buildings, like if you have a deep lot, sometimes you can add an extension, an additional home, or turn it into a duplex or a triplex. And that can be done so that it blends in well with rural character. Here are just a couple of examples. here's just another example of a duplex, and this also works in shallow lots because it only has like, 25 to 40 foot footprint. These illustrations come from the Tools for All Home Kit, and there are actually floor plans that are available to people who are maybe interested in developing or adding housing units to their lots. Here's a fourplex, and again, it works well in a narrow lot because it's only 20 feet wide. And if you look at it, it does speak to the Vermont vernacular. Here's an example of a garage or like a carriage barn that was turned into a 1-bedroom, single-family structure. Here's another example of a 1-bedroom unit. Again, it like only 14 feet wide, could fit into a narrow lot somewhere. Here's what it could work well on an existing larger single-family home that could be made into like a triplex. In this case, you've got a one bedroom and two three bedrooms. So those are just some examples. I pulled some of your existing goals and priorities from your current plan, and they still, I think they make a lot of sense. You want to focus on Island Pond as the focal point for the provision of services and economic development, and you want to maintain the town's primarily rural character. You want to promote and use existing public lands and facilities in a manner that benefits the community without jeopardizing the rural unspoiled character. And you want to allow development that maintains that historic settlement pattern. So basically, maintaining that compact, dense development urban center and maintain the open lands around it that is, a trademark of your community's rural character. And in your investments in your infrastructure and services would reinforce that general character and growth patterns, such as, the improvements that you made to the wastewater system. Your existing strategies were supporting state and local efforts to improve and provide affordable and safe housing, and encourage developers to provide a range of options for all Brighton residents, particularly for residents of low and moderate income. And I feel like by talking about a range of options, like those illustrations speak to that. Provide for multi-unit and multi-family housing units that are near or in the existing village center where you have the services that could accommodate them. And also encourage and support energy efficiency programs. I mean, again, your homes, you have more than about 38% that are built before 1939. Probably not energy efficient, could use some weatherization, improvement of the thermal envelope. You would even do that perhaps before promoting fuel switching. Some of the additional goals and strategies that you might want to think about is, again, adding users to your water and sewer systems are going to help to stabilize your rates in the future. And I think we've talked about actually providing some examples of, how, what that would look like. What would happen to your rates if you added X number of units. And making sure, like updating your zoning to make sure that your zoning isn't getting in the way of encouraging more dense development in areas that you want it. So I would revisit, I know that you're talking about making sure that your densities are in alignment with statute. that's, you know, a minimum density of 5 units an acre in areas that are served by water and sewer. You may also want to revisit some of your frontage requirements. Like I think you've been talking about doing that in the neighborhood residential district. And looking at some of your additional setback requirements and see if they still make sense. You also, it seems like you've got a restriction of one single unit dwelling per lot in residential areas that are served by water and sewer. If you were to do away with that, you could add additional units to
Oh.
lots without straining your services.
That's in the revision.
Yeah, I saw it was redlined. So this would, you know, help to make sure that you're allowing to for greater densities in areas that where it's gonna work. The other thing to think about is partial Act 250 exemption in the village and surrounding residential areas. I know we've talked about this. It doesn't alleviate other state permits like wetlands and stormwater, but it does alleviate permitting for housing up to 50 units of housing on 10 acres of land or less. So I think that would be very helpful. It would require subdivision regulations. And if you qualified for that exemption, basically all of these areas that are in the pink, the dark pink would be your village, what is now like your village center. Your medium pink would be considered a planned growth area, and the lighter pink would be considered village areas. All of those areas could be exempt from Act 250 for housing development.
Do you think over the next 10 years that the state's going to lessen their restrictions on Act 250, make things a little bit more easier? I know that Governor Scott didn't get everything that he wanted. Some of the restrictions were made worse when they did the Act 260, when they went through the whole scenario of Act 260, and some of the things got worse instead of better. Do you think that some of these restrictions down the road are going to get better?
I don't know what you mean by better. I know that, for example, he wanted to make the tier 1B exemptions automatic, and he was overruled in that communities have to opt in. So the objection was that communities would still have to choose for it, just like they choose to become a 1 acre town versus like a 10 acre town versus a 1 acre town.
Right, right.
So it's still, to me, I don't see that as a huge setback. It just means that you have to conscientiously choose it. And again, you know, you can remove barriers to housing. It's not going to change the cost of development. And it's not going to drive market preferences, but you can do your best to make sure that your regulations aren't getting in the way.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do here. Also, there are a couple of other programs and incentives. Like the gentleman that we met with this summer who didn't know about village center tax credits. Those are still available, and if our future land use map is approved by the Land Use Review Board, more people will be able to at least compete for those tax credits. You do have that potential for reduced Act 250 permitting expense if you were to adopt subdivision regs. You've got the Community Housing Investment Program And that's a program that could provide a significant amount of funding for projects that meet the a case like the but-for funding case. So in other words, if somebody can't get a housing project to cash flow, they could apply for this to make it cash flow. You've also got the Vermont Housing Investment Program that provides funds to private property owners to create additional units of like apartments on their own property. And you've also got some people could also use planning grants to develop schematics or deal with some of the pre-construction costs. You can also use municipal planning grants to maybe even come up with some scenario planning. Sometimes
So is that, so some of these things that you've brought up, is that up to the planning board to present to the select board, or can the select board approve some of these changes and approve them?
well, you would have to, like, first of all, the property owner would have to be willing to do these. So I think the main thing is to make sure that they're aware that these services are available to them. If the community were to pursue like a municipal planning grant or a community development program grant, those do have to come from the municipality. And it would have to be approved by the select board. But in some cases, it could be really helpful to come up with schematics that the public can really get behind.
Right, so is that something that the planning board should bring to the select board and have them consider doing this?
These are what I'm suggesting here is that these are strategies that the planning commission would include in the housing element of the plan.
Okay,
Yeah,
so then we would present that to the select board and see if they would be in favor of going forward with this.
yeah. So
Oh, that-
finally, we talked about like some of those pre-approved accessory dwelling units. And I know that like you guys pretty much hated the mid-century modern examples that came from the Pacific Northwest. However, the Department of Housing and Community Development is developing like their own Vermont vernacular. So you'd be likely to see some prepackaged accessory dwelling unit designs that really could fit in more with
What the hell is that?
It's his phone.
with a Vermont downtown. So
Okay, no,
and-
I was just curious as to how we could move forward with some of this stuff, and do we have to, as a select board, approach the select board and see if they would get on board with us and doing some of this stuff?
well, the adoption process,
yeah.
the town plan adoption process pretty much involves the select board.
Okay,
So you're going to draft, if you're going to draft a plan, if the planning commission puts these recommendations in the plan, then they would have their hearing. And then, from there, it would go to the select board. And so
So
they
maybe
would
that's
have to
something we should
approve the
consider.
adoption.
Well, I think it's there. We just have to adopt it,
Right,
right?
it's there, so the planning board the select board just has to adopt it,
Right.
The whole plan.
right?
Because when we adopt the plan,
So when we get this
It would-
plan written up, then
That's right.
if they adopt it, then
That's right.
it'll move forward.
that's right.
Yeah, I'm just asking questions.
I noticed.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't know unless you ask,
I
right?
know, I'm
Yeah,
just-
but when you adopt a
Hmm.
plan, it's a two-tiered process.
Okay.
So, the planning commission has their hearing first. They take comment on it and then they forward it to the select board. And then the select board has a hearing. And if there are no objections, then the select board adopts it.
Okay, no, I just want it clarified.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, that's all I have. But this,
Can I ask
I
a
think,
quick question, Allison?
yeah,
So, I know that the state's looking at developing these accessory dwelling unit models and everything, are they doing anything as far as investigating whether multi-unit housing will work in these rural areas? Will people actually buy it, rent it? And what is the appetite for that? Because I do remember a few years ago, Rural Edge was dumping all of their properties in town because nobody would rent them.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that to me is a concern if we set everything up so heavily favoring and so forward in, multi-unit dwellings. If nobody wants a multi-unit dwelling when they come to Island Pond,
Yeah.
we're kind of not. I mean, and this came up when I went to the town managers thing. That was
Yeah.
a concern that some of the other rural town managers had was it's great if you're in Newport or you're in St. Johnsbury, multi-unit dwellings make lots of sense.
Yeah.
Rural areas, people aren't really accustomed to that. And is that really going to be something people are going to have a drive to rent or buy, or are we going to build stuff and nobody's going to come? And then we're going to have developers going broke because they took a gamble, and then we stand there holding the bag that, well, we talked you into coming here, and then nobody wanted your product.
Well, when I've worked with developers, they
he's right, too.
generally they've done their homework, so they're not just like, okay, well, I'll do this in good faith. But the other classic conflict that we have right now is that developers will only build what they can pencil out. And right now, the only thing that they can pencil out are multi-units in some form or another. So if for making it marketable in Brighton, it might just be an issue of scale, and scale that continues to communicate a sense of privacy. Like maybe it's more duplexes rather than triplexes or fourplexes. Maybe it's something more of like a cottage court so that you have all single family detached homes, but they're just smaller. But
Yeah, I mean,
I,
that
I
was
would
my
I would
concern,
be
because
really
I do
shocked
think
to
about that.
see, I would be really shocked to see a developer who just stumbles into your town without having done his homework.
I mean,
Right, but I mean,
I said,
if we're focused so heavily into multi-unit dwellings, I mean,
Yeah.
if that's what our town, I mean, it's a little like what I had a problem with our town plan, the one we're getting rid of. It
Yeah.
was so heavy on preventing wind turbines that it completely negated everything else. And I don't
That's
want us
right.
to go down that same path with this, that we're so heavily focused on creating multi-unit dwellings that we ignore the fact that that is not the majority of our housing stock and may not be in the future. I mean, multi-unit dwellings may not work in Island Pond.
Mhm.
I don't want us to completely negate that is an option.
Right. No,
And
I hear what you're saying. It's just that when we introduce the idea of housing targets, I think that in most people's minds, they think of, 17,000 freestanding, detached, single family homes being added to our region. And it doesn't have to be that way. So it's not necessarily that. I don't think we're painting ourselves into a corner. I think where we can get into trouble is if we're not allowing for creative development to take place, if a developer is able to show that it works. And
right, no, I'm
by
fine with that.
works, that
I
it
just
will
want to make
sell.
sure that we're not so heavily. 'Cause I mean, like down here where I'm at, we have lots of developments now that are a combination of all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
There's
well,
single
yeah, but you
family
got the
homes,
population. That's different.
there's duplexes, there are apartments, they're all built into the same little subdivision.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's when I look at Brighton, if we're looking at a subdivision that, we could get somebody to come in and put in 100 housing units at some point, it's going to have to be something like that. It's going to have to kind of accommodate all those. And I just don't want us to be so focused on apartments and duplexes that we ignore the fact that there is a market for single family homes too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think it's more about like gentle, what they call gentle infill. Um, and the other thing is that what I'm seeing is a greater demand for single family homes, but much smaller than what's been built in the past, particularly as you get closer to centers of development. And those seem to be sought after by people who want to age in place, but don't want to have to maintain a 5-bedroom home.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. You've got a population of people now from the big cities that are looking to maybe come here, have a summer place, fall place, 2-bedroom apartment, and then go snowbirds and go down south to North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida for the winter. I mean, I see that type of expansion coming here to enjoy our summers that we have here and the rural feeling that they have here. A lot of people come here because of that. And I think down the road, then they go down to the, the wintertime, spend an area down there. But I see more of a bedroom community type scenario coming here. I mean, that's what I call a bedroom community, where they're here in the summer, late spring, summer, and early fall, and then they leave to go someplace else for the winter. That's what I think that's going to happen here. Is that the wrong feeling to have?
No, I think maybe to address both of your points, maybe it makes sense to talk about in this housing element, to talk about the concept of gentle infill. And that it's not going to be one turbocharged major development that's going to bridge the gap for everybody. Because, you do have a variety of housing demands, but you also still want people who are coming for a rural setting that just want it to be a little easier to
Yeah.
be in.
I mean, in the
Easier to
past 10
maintain.
years that I've noticed, that's what's happening here. Is you've got people from the southern part of the state, Connecticut, New York, they're buying properties up here to spend the summer, and then they close the place up and they go someplace else. I mean, the people want to leave the big cities now. They're not content to be there anymore. In my age group, anyways.
Uh-huh.
And I'm calling myself old, but anyways, that's what I see coming here to Island Pond, and I've seen that trend happening here. People are buying property to come here for the summers, and then they leave, and they'll rent their place out to snowmobilers and stuff in the wintertime while they're down someplace else, which still brings economic development here because they're spending monies here. But you don't have that. You have a transient population that's coming here now. That's how I'm looking at Island Pond.
So we could look in we've probably collected this information about owner occupied and how many dwellings we have in the previous town plan or previous census. So we could see if a larger share of the housing stock is vacant and seasonally occupied, to see if that trend that you're talking about is actually are outsiders buying more of our housing stock all the time?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I see that. I mean, look what's happened around the lake. Locals don't own camps around the lake anymore. It's owned by everybody from out of town. I mean, and they're coming here and spending the summer, and then they leave. But yet we have snowmobilers that are renting those camps to go snowmobiling in the wintertime. And I find that the locals here don't own much around the lake anymore. I mean, you can't deny that fact.
Well, obviously that the town of Brighton government has to eminently domain purchase 100 of your acres and put up a bunch of houses.
There we go.
That's
We're
what I've
coming
been
for
thinking.
you.
I mean, you got the perfect. spot.
I mean, I'm just,
Mm.
this is what I see happening in the town, and I mentioned it to the school board at the last town meeting. I mean, this is becoming a bedroom community, and I don't know if people want to admit to it or not, but that's what's happening here.
Well, we can certainly take the previous data points and show long-term trends. I mean, we've got it from 2010, and I'm sure it's available from 2000 as well. If we're going to show that kind of trend, I think it makes sense to go like 30 years.
Yeah.
Just an idea, that's all. I'm just putting something forward.
Yep.
I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I think what I'm talking about is good for the town also, because it brings in dollars to the town. And if that's the case, that means we need more restaurants and we need more things for the people who come up here on the weekends and people who come up here for the summer and wintertime activities. And I mean, we don't have a lot to offer here.
Just charge the part-timers more property tax.
We do that.
Or charge them a vacancy fee.
Some cities do that.
Yep, they do exactly that. Even though in some ways they're your dream resident because they're here 6 weeks out of the year, but they pay taxes for the whole year.
That's right.
But they don't go to our restaurants or spend any money if they're not here.
No, but while they're here, they do.
Yeah.
For 6 weeks.
Well,
out
and
of
and I
52.
know that.
I think-
How many
I think
people in this
52.
town go to the restaurants, and how many times a month do they go? I think it was in there once a month.
Yeah.
That's not much.
Not much.
That's locals.
It's the outsiders that are
That's right.
supporting what we have here.
That's right.
Yeah,
I
Right.
mean, I've seen,
Yeah.
I myself at the American Legion have seen more outsiders coming here now than the people who originally supported the Legion. It's not the original people who lived here that's supporting the Legion. It's everybody from out in the outlying areas now that are supporting the Legion.
That's
And it used to be the other way
And
around.
it used to be
You're all
the
getting
other way
old, Mark.
around. Huh?
Says you're all getting old.
yeah, they're all dead, Bert.
Getting so you
No,
can't even get into
I'm
any
just-
of the good places
I'm just saying
anymore.
that, we should think about this. I mean, this is what's happening, and
That's what we're doing.
I mean, she's done a good job, but I haven't heard much said about this.
Well, we can also look at the survey respondents, those who did indicate that they come here seasonally, and find out what their habits are, how they change, how they
Yeah.
vary from those people who live here year round. Keeping in mind that there was very strong sentiments about people who felt like, who lived here year round, who felt like they were being forgotten.
And I understand that
Promoting
feeling.
tourism.
Absolutely. I understand that.
Forgotten how.
Forgotten, and I just said, like, particularly for like economic development, it said, stop promoting just for the tourists. I
There
mean,
you go.
those were
See?
some of the comments. Make
Yeah,
this
but
a
I still
community for
don't
us.
understand that, because if you're promoting, it's for the whole town. It's not just for tourists. I mean, we
understand.
have, things during the summer, fireworks, for instance, that's
Oh, yeah.
not just for tourists. That's for locals as well.
Right.
Anything that goes on is for locals, whether they participate is their own.
And it wasn't for the outsiders,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have the fireworks.
Exactly.
Right. No, I'm reiterating a sentiment that came up again and again in the open-ended comments in the
I
survey.
saw those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know,
that's what
and
I was like.
And I do think some of that is people don't understand that, a lot of those things that we do for the tourists, it's because we can obtain grant money to help pay for that. But that grant money doesn't support local entertainment.
Mhm.
That
Right.
grant money only works if you're using it towards attracting tourists to town. That's the way that the state and the feds have it set up.
That's
So it's
right.
kind of,
Yeah.
I won't say it's a game, but it is kind of a game. You know, if the
Yeah.
locals want to enjoy that stuff, well, we have to bring other people in, or we're not big enough to pay for that kind of stuff on our own.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
don't know that we're good about, really telling people this is how this is paid for. It is not you paying for this for the tourists. This
Yeah.
is,
You don't have to pay for part of the grant? No?
no, they
Is
don't.
the grant,
No.
the grant
No.
does the whole thing?
No,
Yeah, I mean,
No.
like all of those concerts and everything we've done the
Yeah,
last few
that's all-
years.
Saying no.
that's what, they don't, no, the town does not pay for
I
anything.
know, I
No,
just
no
still.
percentage at all.
No, because it's through the,
Grant.
and it's through the community, most of it's from the Brighton Community Forum.
Yeah, and they don't make no money
That's why
off
we're
it.
sweating this year because we haven't gotten approval on our grant money for this year. So
Yeah,
without
that's a
that
concerning fact here.
Right.
I don't know what's gonna happen this year.
Yeah.
And the town certainly can't afford a $30,000 bill for fireworks.
It's not 30,000. Stop
What is it?
exaggerating, it's 20.
20. Well, with the increases and everything, I just added a little bit.
Yeah. What's 10,000?
Inflation, huh, Mark?
Yeah, inflation. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, but $20,000 for what? An hour and a half? That's pretty.
No, it's 20 minutes.
I don't think
Your
it's
name
not.
is-
$1,000 a minute.
No, Allison, you've done a terrific job on this, and we really appreciate all the information that you've gotten us. And it makes us talk about other things, and that's why I brought a few things up tonight, is because
Yep.
there's things that we should talk about.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, that's always good to see. So any other comments or questions? I can flesh out this draft and send it to you. I would invite your next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing I'm gonna say is, we need to, if we're gonna attract people to do multi housing, we need to do some sort of an incentive to get them to do it.
Yep.
And that's what
Um,
she's talking about.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah,
already
like
talked
I
about that.
think that like
Bill was
the
sleeping.
CHIP program, which is just being rolled out now, is a
I gotta go to the boys' room.
major
Okay.
it's a major incentive for certain developers. They have to be comfortable sharing their numbers with the public to show how they need those funds to make it pencil out. The Vermont Housing Investment Program is a little smaller scale and it's a little more one-on-one. It's smaller sums of money too. It's like about 50,000 per unit created. But it's a great incentive. I had some friends of some kids of some really good friends of mine create a really fantastic apartment in their brand new house, or the house that they had just bought, and they had renovated it, and everybody was happy. Unfortunately, they brought in a exterminator to do like a fumigation, and they left the pilot lights on, so
Oh,
Oh,
everything went up. But
Mhm.
otherwise, it would have been a great example, and I would have said, yeah. But I mean, that's no fault to the VHIP program.
No,
The only thing I would like to add is I think people have to realize we pass the town plan and it goes to the select board. If the select board decides they want to pursue these things, all of which this is really good to want to pursue these things, but there's nobody on the select board that's going to pursue those things, and they're going to have to assign the initiative to pursue these things to some kind of staff members who I don't know that we really have. So, I mean, I'm not saying this shouldn't be included. I'm just saying when you talk about it, it's great to really do, unless the planning commission members themselves want to take on the responsibility of pursuing these strategies and these goals, that'd be great. But other than that, it's going to be staff.
I
Just
mean,
so you
isn't
know.
that how it works now?
Pardon?
Isn't that how it works now?
Yeah, I'm just making sure everybody realizes that just because they make motions, that there's no magic wand that things automatically happen
Right.
just because
No, I
motions
know.
are made.
I understand that.
We all set on this discussion to move on? Allison, you're gonna stay for the zoning, right?
Yeah, I just want to observe it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna put my mic on mute. So, but I would like to find out what you're doing with the zoning. So
Yeah.
just to see how it dovetails.
Yep.
Sure. So that's what we're moving now to the zoning and the update. I don't really have an update from Nick this week because Joe, you had emailed him certain things and I knew he was probably working on that, and with Christmas and everything going on, I mean, I think he didn't probably have much time. But you did talk to him about the sisters, right?
Yes,
On
right.
Derby
Yeah.
and Horton.
Right,
He knows about those two, right? Now?
right. We're going to get into those when we talk more deeply.
Yep. I don't know of anything else. I haven't seen any other permits or anything
He
on the
called-
board. There's only a couple.
I wrote to him and told him because he signs his things as acting zoning administrator. He's really not acting. He's the zoning administrator. There's
Right.
no provision in the law for acting, you know.
And
So
you
I
also
told
told
him
him,
in order to be free of us, he'd have to resign probably, you know, but he seemed to think that we were actively looking for another zoning
Oh.
administrator. And I said, we're not really.
oh, wow. But
So
he
I
liked
told
the
him-
idea.
I said, you don't have to use that acting part anymore.
And then you told him about the CO papers to put them in with the permits, and he liked that idea.
Right.
So, is there any other thing to report? You think we're good?
Yep.
Okay, so next, I don't know, I had, Joe, I didn't give you a paper because you're not here, but I do have a whole draft on the next one that we're doing of so there really wasn't much, Allison, on the zoning. But the revisions for the Airbnb, maybe VRBOs and stuff like that. I have a whole draft from Burke, which has all the information of how they set theirs up.
I'd like to be able to read.
Oh, no, I don't want to discuss
No,
it.
no.
Yeah, I was gonna
But
table it.
the next meeting, I'd like to discuss
Yeah.
this. You
I
gave
definitely,
very
You
informative.
wanna- want-
I did read,
wanna-
the long-term rental.
Yeah,
Where did it say? Provide to resident by rental owner for a fee for more than 181. So are they,
We're-
according to this, anybody that has apartment buildings is gonna get charged $35 per apartment per year
That-
to rent.
That's what I was.
That's not gonna, I'm sorry, that is,
Who
No,
charged?
I don't agree with that one.
Who's charging who?
well, this is the Burke's one, so myself, I'm saying that we should not be doing that.
But is
I
the
agree with
town
you.
of Burke charging
Yeah,
them?
yes,
$35 for long-term rentals.
yeah, for like if you have an apartment building and you've got
Three
say
apartments.
3 apartments, you're gonna get charged $35 per
Not-
apartment per year.
And Joel, I think the reason for that is if you look at this paperwork that we got, they have the Vermont Department of Safety, short-term rental safety, health and financial obligations, what people who are renting short-term have to follow, which also long-term apartment buildings, we're getting into an area now, what the big cities do.
See, what happened here,
I'm just saying that's short-term.
so I think Burke just put that in there. It's not a state thing,
no, I don't think so. We can do.
No,
it.
Not Department of Health.
Do something that Burke does.
just short term.
Yeah, but also long-term rentals, some of the cities in Vermont
Right,
follow
Right.
a Department of Health Safety regulations, which we don't have here.
Hmm.
So if you're going to have somebody going out and inspect apartment buildings, which the state does right now.
Yes, they do.
But if you as a town are going to
Oh.
do it, then they charge a fee and I can see the $45 fee for that.
Yeah,
Because they go to make sure that the railings on the porches meet that, and there's no lead, and I mean, there's rules and regulations. You don't even have a clue of what's out there. It's
Yeah.
very.
no, and I get it. I think it's good for 45, because I mean, we have apartments and I know that.
But short-term rentals, I can see that we should look at that.
But I think charging the landlords in this town $35 per apartment per year is.
I never
The
did
only-
that.
the
I
only
never
reason-
thought they did that. That's
Oh, you
only
get
reason
somebody
you-
that's got 20.
The only reason you do that is if you had an inspection program.
That is
like we're
correct.
talking about.
Right.
We don't have that.
I mean, if
Right.
then you could justify the fee because it's
Yeah.
paying for the program. But
Right.
just to charge a fee and have no program, no.
Right, yeah,
No,
all right.
So Joel, I have a copy for you. I can put it in the mailbox of the planning board over
Yeah, I'll
there.
be in. I would have been in today, but I had a number of problems here at the house, so put it in my mailbox or lay it on the lister's desk or somewhere.
Yeah.
Where's
Because
the
that's where
lister's
my
desk over here?
that's
Where
where I
is
am
that?
now.
And James, I have one for you as well. Do you want me to put it in my mailbox or do you think Tanya can come up and get it? Or
Can
something
you
for you?
scan it over to me? I can.
I
send
can
it to
ask the
you.
girls. I can ask the girls.
Katie
I'll-
can do it.
If you,
Oh, okay.
I can scan it and email it to.
Wait a minute, where's mine? There's the. This is the original. We did it on both sides.
but if you're gonna, the only thing is that if we're gonna charge a fee for short-term rentals, that means the fire chief is gonna have to go do inspections.
Mhm.
And is he willing to do that? I
You're gonna have
mean,
to pay him. So how many of these are we gonna do? Is it gonna
I
be
don't
worth
know.
doing?
I don't know. So that's what I'm getting at.
I mean,
If you're
some of
gonna charge a
these programs are a
$35
nice
fee,
idea, but if we don't have
he's-
enough of them to pay the salary, there's no point. You're just adding an expense for the town.
that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. So
My
that's what I'm
take
getting
on
at.
that is if you're gonna be charging somebody $35 for the fire department to come and inspect their place, give him the $35. How long, $35? Is it gonna take him an hour to walk around the house? I mean, you're making money, we're not making money for the
Well,
town, really.
That would be the idea. The money that would be the fee that you would
Yes.
charge would go towards paying
It
for
would
the
cover
cost of
itself
running
out
the
of his
program,
salary.
one of which
I-
is the guy.
Yes,
But
I
does-
agree.
Does he want to take on that responsibility is what I'm getting at.
Well, then
Exactly.
pay one of the
It's like-
volunteers.
It's like Mike says, in order to pay somebody to do
Lot-
that, you'd
A
have
lot
to
of
have
liability,
Right,
a lot of people.
What the
Aren't
walk in a
the
house?
fire
a
marshal
lot of
inspections
liability to
already
put your name
required?
on a thing that's saying that
Yep.
that short-term rental meets the criteria, and then if something happens, then guess who gets sued?
Well, for God's sakes, if you have a fire department and they're all trained,
That
I mean,
I'm
you're
just-
talking about being scared about walking into somebody's house if they're
I'm just-
trained correctly.
I'm just saying that there's liability issues along with this.
there's quite a bit on the checklist here that they have to look at.
Don't the insurance companies
Yep,
care about whether somebody rents their part of their building?
Some do, Joel, and some don't.
well, the problem is a lot of them don't tell their insurance company.
And they're not gonna tell the town either.
Yeah.
No.
right.
That is correct.
And really, do we want to know? Well, we want to know for taxes.
Right,
No, my other concern with this is, it's great to say the fire chief can go do it.
Yeah.
Does Rick have the ability to do the write-ups? Who's doing all the paperwork that goes with it? Who's scheduling all of it? It's more than just that, walk around the house for 10 minutes. There's a whole, I'm sure Burke has a department that sits around and does that work.
It-
We
Well,
don't
and,
have a
you
town
know-
clerk's office with any capacity to take on more work.
But yeah, and also just to let you know, when you've got a fire chief that's doing this, he's been to courses to how to do this, and he's taken on the responsibility. So he goes and gets trained and has documentation, and he's been trained
Like,
to do these inspections. So This gets into
I think a
hole
lot of it-
deeper than, does the town really want to get into this?
I think a lot of it is not just that, it's, I mean, I'm talking, this looks more like a fire marshal thing here. GFI outlets,
Oh, yeah, they go through the whole thing.
right? Landing,
Short-term rental is supposed to have GFIs, carbon monoxide detectors, one on each floor. I mean, it's a whole scenario of rules and regulations that we don't have a full-time inspector to enforce this stuff.
well, and if something happens, then it falls back on the town because
You
Signed off,
we're charging.
yeah.
Mm.
Once you charge for a service, you are responsible.
Yeah,
you inspected,
But we'll look,
Yep.
everybody read this and then we'll talk about it
Yep.
at the next meeting.
I think that's a great idea, Mark.
Yep.
So smart.
Okay, so we're gonna table that for now and we'll get the papers to Joel and
Yeah.
James.
And I'll approve the minutes of, I'm
So,
sorry.
are we not done yet?
We're not done. We're still talking about our pay raise.
We got a pay raise.
Oh, shit.
yeah,
Okay, so the only other thing too, do you want to go into the other business? The other business I only wanted to mention is our next meeting is on Martin Luther King, so aren't we closed?
On
We
the
don't
fifth-
have
on,
any-
on the 19th,
Yes,
that's Martin Luther King,
yes.
Yes, it
I
is.
hope so, yes,
then we're closed.
right? So we don't have a meeting.
So we do not have a meeting.
You sure that holiday wasn't canceled?
Not yet. Give it time.
I mean, it's,
Yeah, right?
it's pretty woke.
So it'll be the first Monday of the following month.
Yeah.
It'll be our next
I
meeting.
love it, James.
Yeah,
I mean,
But
you guys could meet if you wanted to, it's nothing to
Oh,
say.
yeah. Nothing says that we can't.
But you're gonna open,
time and a half.
you're gonna open the building for us? Yeah,
For
no
what they
problem.
pay us?
Yeah. There
do
you
you
go.
guys
I'll take
get-
a,
What do you
I'll
guys
take a
get paid
holiday.
now?
Okay,
300?
300.
300 a year.
so my thing I brought up at the beginning of the meeting is
Yes.
this $300 does not make the cut anymore. So, it's a pittance it's less than a pittance now. So I'm looking for either an $800 or $1,000 a year thing because we do attend 2 meetings besides all the other stuff that we do during the year and all the reading and the outside meetings that we go to. And I think it's time. I've been on this board for quite a few years now, and I think it's time for an increase.
I agree. How about you, Bill?
You can
I
put your
agree
equipment
there's
in,
time for an
take the
increase.
skateboard.
I think the 800 or 1,000 is a little,
Well, that's a little sketchy too, but I'm trying to be fair.
I was thinking,
I don't think that's what he meant.
no, I was thinking it's
Let's-
a little high.
No, I don't think so. No.
Let's demand 1,200 and then settle for 1,000.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, I'm serious. I mean, we attend 2 meetings a month and look how long we've been here tonight. And we've got a lot of stuff on our plate now and I just think that we deserve an increase.
I mean, one of the reasons that the planning commission's salary wasn't increased historically is because when we had a development review board created and got rid of the zoning board of adjustment, the planning commission also stopped doing site plan reviews, which was a quasi judicial board that had authority over site plans and development. And now the planning commission no longer has that responsibility, which was a pretty heavy responsibility. So now you're planners, and so the increases weren't as warranted, shall we say, as if you kept on having that strategy. But I do think the $300 is a little bit less than you ought to get paid.
A little bit less.
So I'd like to make a motion that we have an increase of up to $800.
You can put a request in. You don't get to vote your salary.
Yep.
No,
right.
I
No,
it has to
no.
go. It has to go to the select board. I understand, but
Actually, it
that's
goes
what.
to me and then it goes to the select board.
Oh, really?
I set the budget.
Would you
They
like to go
approved
out
the
to
budget.
dinner next weekend? Anyways, that's what I'm proposing is an increase up to $800. All
I have
those,
a second?
I'd like to make that into a motion.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make it a motion that we increase the $300 to $800.
That's your
a year.
request, your
Not your-
request.
Yeah.
That's what I
requested increase.
said. It's a request. It's a request.
I just want your motion to be right.
Okay.
Do I have to say it?
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, she.
Yeah, I don't say it.
All right.
Okay, we got a second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay,
And I'm doing this at the beginning of the year, so we start out.
It won't go into
fresh.
effect until after town meeting day anyway, because that's gets
That-
approved by
that's
the
fine.
voters.
That's
So does-
fine.
does somebody actually have to go to a select board meeting now and request that,
No.
or you know that
Well,
now we've asked you?
Let me put it this way. The select board, it says it's easy to say no to somebody who's not there.
Well, I'll be there.
I'll be there.
Yeah, Gene, I'll be there.
Bill and I are
Take my
gonna be
word
there
for it.
anyways.
So you'll discuss it in the next
Yep.
meeting, right?
Yep.
Wednesday
Can't
night.
vote on it though, right?
No, I can't. I can't vote on it.
Okay.
Bill.
Oh,
Oh,
boy,
anyways.
yeah, you're gonna have to have, we have to have the other three voting on that. Uh-oh,
Yeah,
you better,
because
you
you
better
and I
suck up
gotta
to
keep
them.
them up.
Yeah.
Heather.
I'm not worried.
Heather, Bruce,
that.
and Mike, hold your raise in their hands.
We'll have to give them a nice big steak.
So anyways, that was my motion and
All right.
hopefully, the select board will appreciate what we do for them.
We all set on that now?
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
I
good?
make a motion that we,
Adjourn.
also, the minutes of the meeting.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, did
Yep.
approve the minutes of the meeting, yeah, because I jumped over that. Everybody approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right,
Now, the last one is
I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Uh,
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Happy New Year,